I never thought my daughter would do this to me. That was all I could think about as I stood there, in the kitchen, watching the rest of the wedding celebration unfold through the small crack in the door. It was my daughter's wedding, the one event I had been looking forward to for months. I had been so excited about it. I was hoping it would be a day to celebrate our family, our bond. But instead, there I was, tucked away in the kitchen, as if I were some unwanted guest, invisible to everyone. They didn't even ask if I was okay, didn't seem to care. I was just forgotten. I'd spent hours getting ready for this day. I even wore my favorite dress, the one I knew Jessica would say looked nice on me. It was a beautiful navy blue with delicate pearl buttons. I had spent hours preparing, planning everything down to the smallest detail, wanting to make this day special for her. And when I arrived at the venue, they didn't even let me sit in the main hall. They told me the kitchen was more comfortable, that it was quieter. I didn't argue. What could I say? I didn't want to ruin the day for her. But as I sat there, all alone, listening to the distant chatter of guests and the clink of glasses, I couldn't help but wonder, when did this happen? When did I become so irrelevant in my own daughter's life? Why was I being hidden away, like a secret that no one wanted to acknowledge? The wedding was supposed to be a happy occasion, but here I was, isolated, wondering if this was the beginning of something far worse. I tried to tell myself it wasn't that bad. After all, maybe it was just too crowded, maybe they didn't want me to feel overwhelmed. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. The longer I sat there, the more the doubt crept in. How had I missed it? How had I allowed myself to be so easily pushed aside? I could hear laughter from the main room, and it stung. Not because I wanted to be in the spotlight, but because I wanted to be included. For once, I wanted to feel like I mattered, like my presence meant something. I didn't understand what had changed. We used to be close, Jessica and I. We had shared so many moments, so many memories. But now, it felt as though I was nothing more than a burden to her. As I sat in the kitchen, fighting back the tears, I heard a noise behind me. I turned to find Jessica standing in the doorway, her smile as forced as I had ever seen it. "Are you okay in here, Mom?" she asked, almost like she was checking off a box on a to-do list. I nodded, trying to push my frustration down. "I'm fine, sweetie. Just a little tired." She didn't even flinch. "Well, dinner's almost ready. I'll make sure they save you a plate," she said before turning on her heels and walking back into the reception area. Her voice, her tone, all of it made my stomach turn. It wasn't real. She wasn't concerned about me. She just wanted me out of the way. I sighed deeply, looking down at my hands. I didn't know what to do anymore. I had spent so many years taking care of everyone, always making sure everyone was happy. But now, here I was, forgotten. I felt so small. So invisible. It was like I didn't even exist in their eyes. I wasn't needed. I wasn't wanted. And as I sat there in that kitchen, the weight of it all came crashing down. But there was something else too, something that made my blood run cold. A feeling that maybe, just maybe, I had been right all along. I wasn't just being hidden because of the wedding. I was being hidden because they didn't want me around anymore. But it was only when I found that receipt later, crumpled up in the trash, that I knew for sure. The receipt from the hotel, where Jessica and John had been staying. The luxury hotel. The one they had visited for a week-long vacation, paid for with money they claimed they were saving for me. That was the moment I knew. I had been used. I had been lied to. And something inside me snapped. I wasn't going to stay in the background anymore. I wasn't going to be the quiet, invisible mother they could walk all over. The game was changing, and I was ready to play. As I sat there, my hands trembling, I stared at the crumpled receipt. The luxury hotel name printed in bold letters made. My stomach churned. I had been saving for years, carefully budgeting my life to stretch my savings. And here they were, living their lavish lives with the money they claimed they were helping me with. The moment the realization hit me, a wave of cold fury swept over me. I couldn't believe it. How could Jessica and John have done this to me? They had been planning all along, using my trust, using my money, while keeping me hidden away like I didn't even matter. I had worked my entire life, giving everything I could to my family, and this was how they repaid me. In a twisted way, I felt foolish for not seeing it sooner. But then again, how could I have? They were always so convincing, so sweet when they needed something, their smiles hiding their true intentions. But the truth was right there in front of me now. That receipt was a symbol of everything they had taken from me, the years of trust, the love I had given, all used for their gain. I knew what I had to do. I wasn't going to let them get away with it. No more. I wasn't going to stay quiet, not this time. As much as it hurt, as much as I felt betrayed, I couldn't let it slide. They thought I was weak, thought they could push me around. But they were wrong. I had been quiet for too long. I had swallowed my pride, kept my feelings to myself, always trying to be the peacekeeper, the loving mother, the devoted grandmother. But I couldn't keep doing that. I was worth more than this. I had spent too many years sacrificing for them to just be tossed aside like this. I stood up slowly, feeling the weight of the moment. The house felt smaller, tighter somehow. I walked over to the window, staring out at the yard. The flowers my late husband and I had planted together. The garden that once brought us so much joy now seemed like a distant memory, just like the family I thought I had. The wedding was still going on, but I had lost interest. I didn't care about their celebration. It no longer held any meaning for me. I had been pushed to the side, not just physically, but emotionally, and that was something I couldn't ignore anymore. As I stood there, I felt a sense of calm wash over me. I had made my decision. I wasn't going to play along anymore. I wasn't going to be the invisible woman in the background of their lives. I was going to fight back. It wasn't going to be loud, it wasn't going to be a public spectacle. But it would be enough. I had the power to take control of my own future. And that's exactly what I was going to do. I had lived my life for them, always putting their needs first. But now, it was time to think about myself. I had one more thing to do before I could truly move forward. I needed to confront Jessica, to show her that I wasn't as helpless as she thought. I wasn't going to back down, not this time. And when she saw the receipt, when she realized I knew the truth, I knew she would understand that she had pushed me too far. The woman she had tried to hide away in the kitchen, the one she thought was too weak to fight back, she was gone. In her place stood someone stronger, someone who wasn't going to let this betrayal go unanswered. The clock was ticking. I wasn't going to wait for them to come to their senses. I was going to take action on my own terms. It was time to show them who I really was. I waited for the evening to fall, the house growing quieter as the wedding celebrations continued without me. The guests, unaware of my presence in the kitchen, carried on enjoying the night while I, once again, was left in the shadows. I had seen this before, over and over again, but this time, something had changed in me. I couldn't just sit back and accept it anymore. The weight of the receipt in my hand felt heavier than it ever had. This wasn't just about money, it was about respect, or the lack of it. I had given my entire life to this family, and yet here I was, hidden away like I didn't matter. I had stayed quiet for so long, letting them walk all over me. But that was about to end. The receipt wasn't just a piece of paper. It was proof. Proof of everything I had been too blind to see. Proof that they had been using me all along. The money they had claimed was helping me, money I thought was a gift, was just another tool for their own selfish gain. I felt foolish for not realizing it sooner, for trusting them so blindly. The realization hurt, but it also ignited something inside me. Something stronger than the sadness. Something I hadn't felt in a long time. Anger. Determination. I was going to confront Jessica. I wasn't going to let her think she could control me anymore. I wasn't going to sit in that kitchen while they had their fun. Not anymore. I slowly stood up, feeling the weight of the moment. As I walked out of the kitchen, I felt a strange calm. The kind of calm you get when you know something is going to change. I stepped into the living room, where the celebration was still in full swing. People were laughing, dancing, and enjoying themselves, completely unaware of the storm brewing just beneath the surface. I spotted Jessica, standing with John by the punch bowl, laughing as if everything was perfectly fine. It made my blood boil. They had no idea that their world was about to be turned upside down. I walked up to her, my heart pounding in my chest. She turned, her smile faltering when she saw the look on my face. "Mom, you okay?" she asked, her voice sweet but strained. I didn't answer her immediately. Instead, I held out the receipt. The one she thought I hadn't seen. The one that told the story of their deceit. Her eyes flickered down to it, and for a moment, she froze. "Where did you find this?" she stammered, trying to regain her composure. "I found it in the kitchen, Jessica," I said, my voice steady but firm. "I've been sitting here, all alone, while you and John enjoy yourselves. And all the while, you've been using me. Taking what I've worked for. It's disgusting." Jessica's face turned pale, her eyes darting nervously toward John. "Mom, I don't know what you're talking about," she said, her voice shaking. "You have no idea what it's been like for us. We've been trying to help you." "Help me?" I repeated, my voice rising with a mix of anger and disbelief. "You've been using me, Jessica. You and John have been taking advantage of me for years. You thought I wouldn't notice? You thought I wouldn't find out." Jessica opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. She looked at John for support, but he only shrugged, his eyes avoiding mine. "I don't want your help," I said, taking a step back. "I don't need your pity. I just want to be treated with respect. Something you've never done." The room felt colder, the laughter and music fading into the background as the weight of the moment settled in. Jessica stood there, her mouth hanging open, unable to respond. She hadn't expected me to fight back, hadn't expected me to stand up for myself. But I wasn't the woman I used to be. I had learned my lesson, and now I was taking control of my own life. "This is over," I said, my voice low and steady. "I'm not going to let you treat me like this anymore. You can't use me, and you can't hide me away. I deserve better than that." As I turned to walk away, I could hear Jessica's voice behind me, but I didn't look back. I wasn't going to let her manipulate me anymore. It was time to start living for myself. I had spent too many years putting others first. Now, it was my turn. And I wasn't going to let anyone, especially not my own family, take that away from me. I spent the next few days in a haze, walking through my house like I was a stranger in my own life. The confrontation with Jessica had left a deep mark on me, but it had also sparked something I had been denying for so long. As much as I wanted to believe in my daughter, in the family I had spent my whole life building, the truth was undeniable. They had been taking advantage of me, and worse, they had been doing it right under my nose. The anger I felt was still simmering inside me, but there was a strange sense of relief too. I had finally spoken up. I had finally said what I had been holding in for so many years. And now, I wasn't going to sit back and let them control me any longer. As the days passed, I started making small changes. I called my lawyer, the one I had trusted for years, to ask about my assets. I needed to make sure everything was in order. I couldn't let Jessica and John have access to anything that wasn't rightfully theirs. I wasn't going to let them use me again. I had worked too hard for everything I had. Slowly, I began to reclaim my space. I rearranged the furniture in the living room, moving things around until the room felt like it belonged to me again. I cleared out the closets, sorting through old things, deciding what I wanted to keep and what I could let go of. It wasn't just about the physical items. It was about taking control of my life, one small step at a time. Each decision I made felt empowering, like I was slowly taking back the years they had stolen from me. But as I worked through these tasks, a thought kept creeping into my mind: what about Wade? My son. My firstborn. He hadn't been part of the confrontation with Jessica. He had been absent, as he often was, hiding behind his wife's manipulative behavior. But he was still my son. And I couldn't just ignore him, not entirely. I had to know where he stood in all of this. I needed to know if he was complicit, if he had allowed his wife to take control of everything. My heart ached at the thought of him being involved in this betrayal. I had raised him to be a man of integrity, to do the right thing, but now I wasn't so sure. That evening, I called him. I hadn't spoken to him much since the wedding, and I had no idea how this conversation was going to go. But I couldn't avoid it any longer. When he picked up the phone, his voice sounded distant, as if he had been expecting this call. "Hey, Mom. How are you?" he asked, his tone flat. I could hear Jessica in the background, her voice muffled, but still audible. "I'm doing okay," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "I just wanted to talk to you, Wade. I need to know where you stand in all of this." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. "What do you mean?" he asked, his voice tightening. I took a deep breath, gathering my courage. "I mean, about Jessica. About everything that's been happening. I need to know if you've been aware of what's been going on. If you've been letting her control everything, including me." Another silence, longer this time. I could hear him shifting, probably trying to come up with a response that wouldn't upset me. "Mom, I don't know what to say," he said, his voice defensive. "I don't know what Jessica's been doing, but you have to understand, she's been under a lot of stress. We've both been dealing with things. It's not as simple as you think." I felt my anger flare again, but I kept it in check. "Stress? Wade, she's been using me. She's been using my money, manipulating me, and hiding me away like I don't matter. And you've let it happen." There was no answer for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice was quieter, more resigned. "I didn't know, Mom. I didn't know she was doing all of that." I let out a frustrated sigh, trying to calm myself. "You didn't know? How could you not know, Wade? You've been married to her for years. You've seen how she treats me." He didn't respond. I could tell he was struggling, torn between his loyalty to his wife and his love for his mother. "I just don't want to lose you, Mom," he said, his voice cracking slightly. "I know I haven't been around much, but I don't want you to feel like you've been abandoned." I closed my eyes, trying to process his words. It wasn't the answer I wanted, but it was something. "I don't know what to say to that, Wade. I've given everything for this family, and right now, it feels like I'm the one who's been abandoned." The silence stretched between us, heavy with unspoken words. "I don't want you to feel like this, Mom," he said finally. "I'll talk to Jessica. I'll make sure this stops." I wanted to believe him, but part of me knew it was going to take more than just words. This wasn't something that could be fixed with a conversation. It was going to take time. It was going to take action. And I wasn't sure I could trust him to take the right steps. "I hope you do, Wade," I said softly. "But it's going to take more than just words. You need to prove it to me." We said our goodbyes and hung up. As I sat there, staring at the phone in my hand, I realized that no matter what happened next, I couldn't keep living in the shadow of their lies. I had to move forward, even if it meant doing it alone. It had been days since my conversation with Wade, and the silence between us was deafening. He had promised to talk to Jessica, to fix things, but I hadn't heard from him since. It was a strange kind of waiting, the kind where you know something is happening, but you're not sure if it's good or bad. I spent my days keeping busy, trying to focus on the things I could control. But every time I looked at my phone, there was still no call from Wade. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being kept in the dark. I had tried to hold on to the hope that my son would step up, that he would realize how wrong everything had gone. But the more I thought about it, the more it became clear that things had gone too far. He had let me down, just like Jessica had. They had all let me down. And as much as I wanted to believe that my son was still the man I had raised, the truth was staring me in the face. Wade had chosen his wife. He had chosen to let her manipulate me, to let her control everything. And I had let it happen, out of love, out of loyalty to the family. But now, there was no going back. I wasn't going to let them continue to walk all over me. It was time for me to take control. I knew I couldn't just sit here and wait anymore. I had to make a move. I had already taken steps to protect my assets, to make sure Jessica and John couldn't take anything else from me. But I needed to do more. I needed to confront Wade. I needed to know where his loyalty truly lay. I couldn't afford to keep pretending that everything was okay. So, I called him again. This time, I wasn't going to give him the chance to brush me off. I was done being polite, done waiting for things to change on their own. I dialed his number, the familiar tone ringing in my ear. It took a few moments before he picked up. "Mom." His voice sounded strained, like he had been avoiding this conversation. "Wade, we need to talk," I said, my tone firm but calm. "I need to know what's going on. I can't keep waiting for you to fix this. You've had plenty of time." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. I could hear him sigh, as if he was preparing for a battle he didn't want to fight. "I know, Mom. I've been trying to sort things out," he said, his voice quiet. "But it's not that simple. Not that simple." I repeated, feeling a surge of frustration. "How much more complicated does it have to get, Wade? Your wife has been using me, manipulating me, and you've done nothing about it. You've stood by while she treated me like an outsider in my own family. And now, I'm supposed to just accept that." "I didn't know it was this bad," he said, his voice sounding defensive now. "I didn't know how bad it had gotten. But I'm trying to fix it." "Fix it?" I felt my anger rising, but I kept it in check. "How?" "By letting her continue to control everything? By pretending like nothing happened? You're my son, Wade. And you've let me down." There was a silence on the other end of the line, and for a moment, I wondered if he was going to hang up on me. But then he spoke again, his voice softer this time. "I'm sorry, Mom. I really am. I know I've messed up. And I want to make it right. But I need you to trust me. I'm going to talk to Jessica. I'll make sure she understands that this can't go on. I don't know if I can trust you anymore, Wade," I said, my voice shaking with emotion. "You've let this happen for so long, and now you want me to just forgive you? It's not that easy." "I understand," he said, his voice cracking. "I've messed up. But I swear I'll fix it. I just need you to give me a chance." I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to believe him, wanted to believe that my son was still the man I had raised, but another part of me was too hurt, too betrayed to trust him again. "I'm not asking for forgiveness, Wade," I said, my voice steady now. "I'm asking for you to show me that you're willing to fight for me. To show me that you're not going to let Jessica continue to use me. I need to see that." There was a long silence before he finally spoke. "I will, Mom. I promise. I'll make this right. I swear I will." I didn't know if I could believe him, but I had to. For my own peace of mind, I had to hold on to the hope that maybe, just maybe, things could still change. "I hope so, Wade," I said softly. "I really do." We ended the call after that, and I sat in the quiet of my home, unsure of what the future would hold. I had taken the first step in standing up for myself, but now it was up to Wade to prove that he was willing to do the same. Days passed and the silence between me and Wade stretched longer than I could stand. He had promised to fix things, but every time I thought about calling him again, I stopped myself. I didn't want to be the one chasing after him. It was his turn to step up. It wasn't just about me anymore. It was about reclaiming my dignity, my voice in this family. I had spent so many years quietly accepting things, keeping my thoughts and feelings to myself, always trying to be the one who kept the peace. But now, it was clear that silence wouldn't work anymore. The truth was out, and I couldn't ignore it. One morning, I woke up and realized that the feeling of being invisible had finally pushed me to a breaking point. I wasn't going to be quiet anymore, no matter how hard it was. I wasn't going to wait around for someone to take action on my behalf. I needed to take charge of my own life, my own future. I started by organizing my finances, something I had neglected to do in the past. I contacted my lawyer to make sure everything was in order. I had worked my whole life to build what I had, and I wasn't going to let Jessica or John take it from me. It was time to make sure my assets were protected, my legacy secure. The more I worked through my financial papers, the clearer it became, this wasn't just about money. It was about respect. It was about being seen, being heard, not being treated like I was disposable. The more I looked at the numbers and accounts, the more I realized how much I had allowed them to take for granted. For years, I had let Jessica and John control the narrative. I had let them dictate how I should feel and what I should do. But no more. I was taking back control. The phone call with Wade still weighed heavily on my mind. I wanted to believe that he would come through, that he would do the right thing, but I couldn't shake the doubt. It was hard to believe anything anymore after everything that had happened. I tried to focus on the steps I could take for myself, but the uncertainty about my son lingered. He had always been my first priority, my pride and joy. But now, he had become part of the problem. I knew I couldn't keep waiting for him to fix this. I couldn't keep waiting for someone else to make things right. That was when I realized I had to confront Jessica again. I wasn't going to let her think she could continue to control me, to manipulate me. I wasn't going to sit idly by while she used me to get ahead. It was time to face her again, not as the woman she had kept hidden, but as someone who could stand up for herself. The next day, I called Jessica. My heart raced as the phone rang, but this time, I wasn't afraid of what she might say. I was ready. "Hi, Mom," her voice was as sweet as ever, but I could hear the edge of discomfort in it. She knew what was coming. "Jessica, we need to talk," I said, my voice firm, no room for negotiation. "It's time we both had an honest conversation about what's been happening." There was a brief silence on the other end. "Mom, I don't know what you think is going on, but I swear, I never meant to hurt you," she said, her voice rising in defense. "I've been trying to do what's best for everyone." Best for everyone. I repeated, my voice cold. "Is that what you call it? Using me for my money, hiding me away at my own daughter's wedding, and pretending like none of it was happening? You think that's what's best for me?" There was another pause, this one longer. I could feel her unease, but it didn't make me feel any better. "Mom, she started, but I cut her off. "Don't," I said. "I've had enough of your lies. I've had enough of being treated like I don't matter. It ends now, Jessica." She didn't answer right away, and for a brief moment, I thought she might hang up. But she didn't. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice suddenly small. "I never meant for things to get so out of hand." "Well, they have," I replied. "And now, you have to deal with it. No more pretending. No more using me. I'm not going to be your pawn any longer." She was quiet for a moment. "I understand, Mom," she said, the sincerity in her voice faint but present. "I will make it right. I promise." I didn't trust her promises anymore. They had meant nothing in the past. "We'll see," I said. "But it's going to take more than words this time. You have to show me that you mean it." I ended the call and put my phone down, feeling a strange sense of calm. It wasn't over yet, but I had taken a step forward. I had finally made my voice heard, and that was something. I wasn't going to be the same woman who sat quietly in the kitchen anymore. I was taking control of my own life, one conversation at a time. It had been a week since my conversation with Jessica, and the silence that followed was suffocating. I had hoped things would change, that somehow, My words had reached her, but there was no sign of any change. No phone call from her, no effort to make things right. I began to feel the weight of that silence, heavier than I had anticipated. I had given them the chance to redeem themselves, to show me that they cared, but they hadn't. I sat in the living room one afternoon, staring out the window, trying to make sense of everything. The house felt colder, emptier. The laughter and warmth that had once filled these rooms were now just distant memories. My thoughts kept drifting back to Wade. I had been so sure he would come through, that he would see the truth and take action. But now, the doubt crept in. Was he ever really on my side? Or had he just been hiding behind Jessica's manipulation, pretending he didn't see what was happening? I hadn't heard from him since that phone call, and I was beginning to wonder if I ever would. It hurt more than I wanted to admit. I had always been there for him, always tried to protect him, to guide him. But now, it felt like he was choosing her. Choosing the life they had built together over his own family. I couldn't keep waiting for him to come around. I had to face the reality that he might never change, that the son I had raised might never be the man I hoped he would be. But that didn't mean I had to accept it. I wasn't going to sit around waiting for someone else to fix my problems anymore. I was done being passive, done letting things happen to me. It was time to take control, to stand up for myself in ways I hadn't before. I didn't know exactly what that looked like yet, but I knew I couldn't stay in the background anymore. As the days went by, I found myself thinking about the future. What did I want for myself now? What was I willing to put up with, and what was I going to walk away from? The answers didn't come easily. But one thing was clear, I had to stop letting them decide for me. I needed to make my own decisions, even if it meant walking away from the family I had worked so hard to build. I knew I couldn't change them, couldn't force them to see the truth. But I could change how I responded. I didn't have to stay stuck in this cycle of disappointment and betrayal. The next morning, I woke up with a new resolve. I wasn't going to make excuses for their behavior anymore. I wasn't going to let Jessica or Wade continue to control my life, whether they realized it or not. It was time to set boundaries, to stand firm in what I deserved. I had worked hard my whole life, and I wasn't about to let anyone take that away from me. I didn't know where this journey would take me, but I knew one thing, I wasn't going to let it break me. I had spent far too many years putting others first, waiting for them to change, to care. But now, it was my turn. And I was ready to take the next step. No more waiting. No more hoping for things to magically get better. It was time to fight for what I deserved. I picked up my phone and dialed Wade's number again. This time, I wasn't going to let him get away with brushing me off. I wasn't going to let him hide behind his excuses. I was done with that. The phone rang twice before he picked up, his voice sounding hesitant. "Mom," he said, his tone uncertain. "Wade," I said, my voice steady. "I need to talk to you. I've been patient long enough, but I can't keep pretending like everything is okay. You need to show me that you're serious about making things right." There was a long pause, and I could hear him sigh. "Mom, I know I messed up," he said. "But I'm trying. I promise, I'm trying." "Trying isn't enough anymore, Wade," I said, my voice firm. "You need to show me. Words don't mean anything if you don't back them up with actions. You've had your chance, and now it's time for you to prove that you care. Prove that you're not going to let Jessica control everything." There was silence on the other end, and I could feel my heart racing. I wasn't sure how he was going to respond, but I wasn't backing down. "I'll talk to her, Mom," he said, finally. "I swear, I'll fix things." "You'd better," I replied. "Because I'm not waiting around forever. I've given enough, and I won't keep giving if you're not willing to fight for me." We ended the call with nothing resolved, but something inside me had shifted. I had finally taken control. I had finally said what needed to be said. And now, it was up to Wade to prove that he was worth the trust one had placed in him all those years. I wasn't going to be the one to fix this anymore. I had done my part. Now it was time for them to step up. It had been several days since my last conversation with Wade, and the silence had grown unbearable. I had waited for his words, for some sign that he was going to make things right, but nothing came. Every day I checked my phone, hoping for a message, a call, anything. But the screen remained empty. The frustration that had simmered beneath the surface began to boil over, and I could no longer ignore the truth. Wade had made his choice, and it wasn't me. It wasn't the family. It was her. Jessica. I had always known she had an influence on him, but now it was clear that he had become completely wrapped up in her world. I had been pushed aside, forgotten, and I couldn't keep pretending it didn't hurt. I had worked my whole life to give them everything, to make sure they had every opportunity, and this is how they repaid me. By turning their backs and treating me as if I was invisible. It wasn't just the financial manipulation. It wasn't just the wedding where I had been hidden in the kitchen like I didn't belong. It was everything. The little moments, the glances, the way I was made to feel like I wasn't part of the family anymore. The realization hit me hard. Wade had allowed it. He had seen what was happening, and he had chosen to stay silent. He had let Jessica control everything, including him. I sat in the living room one afternoon, staring out at the empty space before me. The house, once filled with love and laughter, now felt cold, desolate. It wasn't just the house that had changed. It was everything. My life. My family. I had given so much, but now I was left with nothing but the pieces of a life I had carefully built, shattered by lies and manipulation. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the garden that once brought me so much joy. The flowers were still there, blooming as they always had, but everything else felt different. I felt different. The phone call I had with Wade had been the last straw. I had given him the chance to step up, to show me that he was still the man I had raised, but he hadn't. He had given me empty promises, promises I couldn't believe anymore. And I knew, deep down, that nothing would change unless I made it happen. I couldn't keep waiting for him to fix things. It wasn't his job to fix anything, it was mine. It had always been mine. I had always been the one who held everything together, the one who kept the family close, who kept the peace. But I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't keep sacrificing myself for them. I had to think about myself for once. I wasn't going to let them take away any more of my life, any more of my happiness. It was time for me to step into the future, to rebuild my life on my own terms. I knew it wouldn't be easy. There would be days when I would miss my son, when I would feel the sting of Jessica's betrayal. But I couldn't let that hold me back. I was stronger than that. I had to be. So, I made a decision. I was going to confront Jessica again, but this time it would be different. This time, I wasn't going to back down. I wasn't going to let her twist the truth, I wasn't going to let her manipulate me anymore. I was going to stand firm. The phone call with her wasn't going to be like the last one. I wasn't going to let her play the victim, pretending like she was sorry, pretending like she didn't know what she was doing. I had been too patient for too long. It was time to take control of my own life, to make sure that I wasn't just another pawn in their game. I wasn't sure how things would unfold, but I knew one thing for sure. I was done being the one who always kept quiet, who always took the back seat. It was my turn to stand up. And I wasn't going to let anyone, not even my own daughter, stop me. It was time. I had spent so long in the shadows of my own family, trying to keep the peace, trying to do what was best for everyone else, but the truth had finally settled deep within me. I had given all I could, and now it was time to stand up for myself. The past few weeks had been a whirlwind of emotions. I had confronted Jessica, and though it had been hard, I had said what needed to be said. But even after that conversation, nothing had really changed. Wade still hadn't stepped up. He still hadn't come through for me in the way I had hoped. And that was when I realized something that hit me harder than any betrayal I had felt before. Wade wasn't going to change. He wasn't going to stand up to Jessica. He wasn't going to be the son I had always hoped he would be. He had made his choice, and it was clear now. It wasn't about family anymore. It was about Jessica and the life they had created together. And I had to accept that. I couldn't keep waiting for him to change. I couldn't keep hoping that things would magically fix themselves. I was the only one who could make things right for me. And so, I did something I had never thought I would do. I took a step back. I stopped trying to force things with Wade. I stopped waiting for him to call, to make things right. I stopped caring about the future that I thought we would have together as a family. I wasn't going to chase after him anymore. It hurt, but it was the only way to move forward. The more I thought about it, the clearer it became. This wasn't just about Wade. It was about me. I had spent my whole life putting everyone else first, but now it was my turn to take care of myself. I wasn't going to keep putting myself in a position where I was constantly disappointed, constantly let down. I had to make a choice: either stay stuck in this toxic pattern or break free and move on. And I chose to move on. I had already taken the necessary steps to protect myself financially. I had made sure my estate was in order, and I had made it clear to Jessica that I wouldn't be manipulated anymore. I didn't know exactly what the future held, but for the first time in a long while, I felt a sense of peace. I wasn't afraid anymore. I wasn't afraid of standing up for myself, of telling the truth, of walking away from a family that didn't value me the way I deserved. I had spent so many years trying to hold everything together, trying to keep the family intact. But now, I understood that sometimes, the best way to heal is to let go. And letting go was the hardest part of all. But I did it. I stood up for myself, and I moved forward. It wasn't easy, and I knew there would be days when I would miss what could have been, but deep down, I knew I had made the right choice. I wasn't going to let anyone else define me anymore. I was going to define my own life, my own future. And for the first time, I was ready to live it on my terms.